Well, hello everybody. I trust that you're having a happy and hopefully peaceful Sunday. This is Steve, the tour guide, with today's Israel update, which I want to begin with the following statement. You've often heard it said accurately that Jesus was a Jew. But I tell you, those of you who believe that Jesus is more than just a historical figure, but that he was, is, and yet to come, that Jesus is a Jew at the present. And if you believe that he sits at the right hand of Yahweh, awaiting for his second coming, well, then you also know from the scriptures that when he returns as King of the Jews. Jesus, therefore, was, is, and will be forever a Jew. Now, if you proclaim yourself to be a Christian and you hate the Jews or you hate Israel, well, guess what? That's an oxymoron. For you can't hate the Jews and hate Israel and claim some sort of fidelity to the King of the Jews, the God of Israel, who calls himself hundreds of times in the Bible, the God of Israel. It's an oxymoron. You can't love the God of the Bible and hate the nation that he set aside as his peculiar possession, through whom he's been revealing himself from time immemorial, when we were established as a people 4,000 years ago, up to this very day. And I say to those frothing at the mouth Muslims who are protesting and shouting genocidal slogans in the city of London or New York or college campuses, and we're talking about people coming out in throngs, hundreds of thousands, shouting slogans like "From the river to the sea, Palestine will be free," which is an explicit call to genocide the Jews of Israel living between the Mediterranean Sea and the Jordan River. I tell you and your blonde and black groupie friends on the college campuses or in London and in New York, that you are not just enemies of the Jewish people, you are the enemies of Yahweh, our God, and he will deal with you at a time of his choosing. The war is on, and make no mistake about it, it is a clash of civilizations. It is everything that the President of the United States would deny that it is. It is a clash between a religion whose tens of millions, if not hundreds of millions of adherents, hates with a genocidal hatred the Jewish people. And here's some video footage of some protests in London yesterday, in which, and you'll see in this first video, the flag of Al-Qaeda being paraded through the streets of London, followed by another clip which shows here a woman and her companions yelling out in Arabic, Haibar, remember Jews. Haibar was an incident in Muhammad's life in which Muhammad, the prophet of Islam, the founder of Islam, expelled and murdered an entire town's Jewish population. And this woman and her sojourners shouting, "Jews, remember the Haibar incident." Well, what they're saying is that they wish to repeat what Muhammad did in Islam's founding, which is to murder Jews wholesale for no other reason than they're being Jews. Make no mistake about it, the people marching in places like London and New York and elsewhere on college campuses who are shouting slogans about clearing Palestine of its Jewish population from between the river and the sea, they are calling for nothing less than a Jewish genocide. And if there's professing Christians in these demonstrations siding with these people, they're fooling themselves. You can't be a child of God or a child of Yahweh in the Bible and side with people who openly call for genocide of the Jewish people. Don't kid yourself. It's not possible. And now with today's update of events. As I'm making this video at this very moment, there's a lynch mob, as you'll see in the video that I'm supplying here, a lynch mob that has thronged its way to the international airport of the Islamic Republic of Dagestan. Dagestan is a Muslim republic within the Russian Federation. These people have heard by rumor that a plane loaded with Jews and Israelis have landed at their airport. And as you see in the video, they've thronged the airport and they're attempting to lynch the passengers of the plane. As for the Russian soldiers who've arrived, they've boarded the plane to ascertain whether these people are Jews or not, and they've determined that they're not. And they're trying to prove it to this mob that there's no Jews or Israelis on the plane. The crowd is not hearing any of this. And you're seeing just one example of the anti-Semitism that's just raging throughout the world, including on our own shores here in North America, in cities and college campuses. Moving on to the next item, the Lebanese border is heating up. Now, I've told you guys the last few days that it looked like Hezbollah was standing to the side, participating only symbolically by launching some anti-tank missiles into Israel, doing very little damage, although succeeding to kill, I think, at least one soldier in the last week. But I said that in the main, Hezbollah was standing to the side, not wishing to escalate things with Israel. But today, and here you'll see this footage, a rocket was shot from Lebanese territory and landed in Israel's largest city on the Lebanese border called Kiryat Shmona. Now, thankfully, Kiryat Shmona has been evacuated in the last week, and therefore there was nobody in the house when this rocket was launched. Hezbollah itself did not claim directly responsibility for this attack. Rather, a Hamas militia in Lebanon took credit for the attack, but Israel places the blame at the feet of Hezbollah. For Hezbollah is in charge. They run that whole southern portion of Lebanon. Nothing happens in southern Lebanon without the approval of Hezbollah. And here you see an example of Hezbollah, which itself is a proxy of Iran, choosing to have a proxy of itself. In other words, a proxy of a proxy, encouraging or allowing Hamas activists in Lebanon to launch rockets from Hezbollah's own territory, because Hezbollah doesn't want to be directly indicted for it by Israeli forces. And therefore, a proxy of Iran is using a proxy, in this case Hamas, to do its business there from southern Lebanon, and Israel's having nothing of it. Okay, Israel has stepped up its own retaliation against Hezbollah. It is now launching raids deeper into Lebanese territory, taking out Hezbollah positions and killing individual fighters of Hezbollah, even this very day, to add to the tally of approximately 60, which is the tally that's been published in the Israeli media, of how many Hezbollah fighters have been killed since hostilities between Israel and Hezbollah started to heat up a couple weeks ago at the beginning of Israel's campaign against Hamas in the Gaza Strip. How far this goes, we don't know, but as I've said previously, there's times in history when men lead events. There's other times in history where the events lead men and take them to places where they themselves don't want to go. Moving on to Gaza, a couple days ago, Israel's ground incursion began with actually smashing success, pun intended, smashing success. Over 450 Hamas positions have been bombed, including 150 tunnels. Now, we've talked about the tunnels. I talked about them in my last video. There's believed to be 300 miles of tunnels under the Gaza Strip built by Hamas with concrete that was supposed to be earmarked towards the Palestinian people themselves, but instead commandeered by Hamas to make these tunnels. And I shared with you a video in my last update as well, depicting this tunnel network as Israel believes it to be a raid underneath the city's main hospital, Gaza City's main hospital, Shifa, okay? And where Hamas's command and control center for prosecuting the war is taking place. Now, Israel has succeeded to penetrate 150 places along this tunnel network. Now, to what extent it's damaged the overall scheme of this network, which Israel has nicknamed the Metro, we don't know. But so far, Israel's incursion has been met with great success. No losses yet to any Israeli soldiers. Here's some footage of some Israeli tanks operating there in the countryside in the Gaza Strip. And I'm also showing you some footage here of an actual home that has been taken over by Israel and the Israeli flag hoisted upon it. And then elsewhere, we see in a video a bulldozer of Israel knocking down a home which the Israeli Defense Forces believed would be used by Hamas to launch their own counteroffensive from homes like this, okay, in the outskirts of Gaza City, from which Hamas snipers, or let's say in this case, probably anti-tank crews, okay, crews of Hamas fighters that would launch anti-tank rockets at Israeli tanks. These houses would be used as the cover for such squads, okay, so Israel is systematically taking out or destroying any buildings from which Hamas's own squads or fighters can launch attacks at Israeli forces. And moving on to the next subject, Rashida Tlaib, a congresswoman in the American Congress. Well, we all know that she's of Palestinian extraction herself. She's very pro-Palestinian, pro-Hamas, but there's a report that was written up in the last couple of days that attempts to prove that she has actual connections to the Hamas organization, and voices have been raised to expel her from the American Congress, or to at least expel her from a sensitive role that she plays. I believe that Rashida Tlaib sits in one of these congressional oversight committees that has intelligence updates, and some of those intelligence updates that are presented to this committee include Israel's own sensitive intelligence in how the war is being waged from day to day. And obviously, Israel and its friends here in the United States don't want an active supporter of Hamas to be privy to such sensitive intelligence information. And lastly, I just want to continue on a theme that I've spoken about on each of these videos, which is the current standing of the government of Israel and its leader, Prime Minister Netanyahu, in the eyes of Israel. Now, I shared with you in the last video that between 80 to 90% of Israelis hold him and his government culpable in the colossal failure of Israel's political echelon and defense forces that took place on the October 7th breach of its border and massacre, which killed something like 1,500 of its citizens. Now, unfortunately for Netanyahu, the rage is only amped up in the last 24 hours. For yesterday, he made a statement in which he basically condemned and blamed his security forces for the failure on October 7th without mentioning himself or without taking any blame as the leader of the country. Now, just bear in mind that the Minister of Defense, Yoav Gallant, he's implicated himself and done what's called in Latin a mea culpa, which is to accept blame for his role in the failure. Benny Gantz, who's also on this triumvirate of war leaders, although he's not even in the government, okay, he's in the opposition of the government, he's accepted his role for what happened on October 7th. The head of Israel's internal security, known as Shabak, has accepted blame for his role in the failure. The top general of Israel, the chief of staff of the Israeli army, he's accepted blame for this colossal failure on October 7th. The only person who refuses to accept any blame for what happened on October 7th is Benjamin Netanyahu himself, the prime minister, the head of the government. Now, I said on the last update that I know that many of you love Benjamin Netanyahu and have extended to him a kind of sacrosanctity that many people today, including Christians, extend to their favorite politicians. And I told you in that video, and I'm repeating in this video, that no human being is above reproach and criticism, including your favorite politicians. Nobody is sacrosanct. Nobody is perfect, and everybody deserves to have their actions and decisions placed under a microscope. And the day is coming when Benjamin Netanyahu is going to have to answer for his role as the head of the state, for the state's greatest failure since its coming into existence. Another thing that he's been chided for in the last 24 hours is that he and his wife have moved from the prime minister's dwelling, the official residence of the prime minister of Israel, to the mansion of a tycoon who's has donated a lot of money to the Netanyahus. Why his prime minister Netanyahu moved to this mansion? Well, because the mansion has a nuclear bomb-proof, allegedly a nuclear bomb-proof shelter deep beneath it. And I get that, you know, the prime minister or leader of any democracy has to be safe. I mean, look, President Biden under the White House has a similar bunker that would keep him safe in case of a nuclear war. But again, the Israelis have their anger at Netanyahu and his wife even have been stoked by the last 24 hours by both his lack of willingness to accept any blame for what happened on October 7th, and then also for what looks to be him and his family trying to cover their own rear ends and, in other words, protect themselves, while much of Israel doesn't feel safe or secure at all since October 7th. Okay, the sense of Jewish security on October 7th was absolutely shattered. There are hundreds of thousands of Israeli Jews who have had to evacuate their homes in the last couple weeks. Almost the entire northern border of Lebanon has been evacuated, and most of these Jews will refuse to return to their homes as long as that threat on the border with Lebanon is not permanently addressed. And here's the leader of the country publicly, and in the eyes of Israelis, okay, I'm just telling you what their view is, without any shame, running for shelter for himself and his wife, not leading from the front, but leading from the rear. And since October 7th, rarely addressing the public at large, rarely meeting with the citizens who have been most affected by this. And therefore, he's not just blamed for what happened on October 7th. He's also resented for what he's done since October 7th and not meeting with the people, speaking with the people, and in the eyes of Israel, keeping his head down from the public and leading from the rear. Anyway, folks, thanks for joining me on this Sunday and taking the time to be with Steve the Tour Guide. Always look below these videos for links. I'm going to try my best today to link a few articles that I think you'll find interesting. These are obviously articles in English that I found. Always check the links below the video. Please remember to give the video a thumbs up, subscribe to the channel. It helps to grow the channel and to make it progress through the YouTube algorithm, which means that YouTube will recommend these videos to a wider circle of people. And should you feel led, I've attached the link to my Patreon account. Patreon is a site that allows you to partner with us, YouTube creators, by donating or partnering with us financially. I've linked my Patreon to the video, and you're able to partner with me from month to month, should you wish, for just $3 a month, which helps, considering that I'm going through some calamitous unemployment related to this war. I promise to continue uploading these videos. They're for free. I'm not charging, I'm not doing it in exchange for money. But at the same time, if you want to partner with me in such a way, I provided the link to do so. That's it for today's video or update. Be safe, stay vigilant, and be blessed. Signing off. Bye-bye.